keep it fruity, sweet and simple, reggae wine. Just a twist, keep it fruity, yeah, that's essential, reggae wine. Just a twist. Take a trip down to the island, take a sip of paradise. Yes, so keep it fruity, sweet and simple, reggae wine. Just a twist, keep it natural, yeah, that's essential, reggae wine.
Welcome to Easley Winery.
Meredith Easley, how are you doing today?
Good, Sean. How are you?
Good. So we're going to talk about the guest experience. When people come into Easley, how are they treated? What do you expose them to? What's kind of the transition of their experience here?
Well, of course, we're going to greet them. We're going to welcome them in. We want them to feel that they're getting ready to have a great, fun experience. We come out from behind the bar. We welcome them. And then we ask them if they would like to do a wine tasting or if they are just here to purchase wine, hang out. They're more than welcome to, once we get their flight of wines all poured for them, then they get crackers, they get a pen, they get the wine list, and then they can sit outside in the wine garden. They can go into the arbor room and sit in there, or even the wine studio. We do have 2 private rooms as well as the outside area to enjoy your wine.
What are some of the things you do in the arbor room for different groups as well as the side studio?
Sure. Some of my favorite events have been just this past weekend. We had bingo. So it was for a Pampered Chef party, and it was a friend of a friend who said, "Hey, I heard you have a room." And she had 30 of her best gal pals come in, and they did a Pampered Chef party for bingo. We've hosted birthday parties, retirement parties. Yeah, we'll be finding retirement stickers like stuck up everywhere, weeks after the parties. Yeah, pretty much name it, and we're happy to host it.
Hi, Lenora. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Why don't you talk a little bit about the wine slushies that you create for the guests?
Yes, so our wine slushies are 100% wine. We don't use any mix. We do offer them year-round, and we usually always have 3 flavors. Currently, we are offering our strawberry margarita, our blueberry cobbler, and our reggae red, which is our #1 selling wine, and we do that in the slushie as well. We have 3 different sizes. We offer a 12-ounce, a 16-ounce, or we also sell by the pitcher for those large party groups.
So how long have you worked here?
I've been here 10 and a half years.
And what do you love about the family?
Well, what's not to? Meredith's energy. She's just so enthusiastic about the wine and the product and just their marketing approach to selling the wines.
So you and Mark have been married for how long?
31 years. What'd he say?
So when you originally met, I think it's kind of a fun story how you guys originally met.
Yes. Once again, what did he say? But it was through a friend of a friend, and I was beach manager at Eagle Creek Park. He was looking for a place to hang out, and that place was at this new friend's beach at Eagle Creek. And so he started hanging out at the beach with me at the park, and I found this lost dog. And so he offered to walk the dog every day for me, and we named the dog Rescue, and that little rescue dog was the beginning of our beautiful, now gosh, that was probably closer to 34 years ago, 35 years ago that we met.
And now you have 3 beautiful daughters.
Now we have 3 beautiful daughters.
What are their names?
So the oldest is Madeline, and she's married to Sergey, and Mary Jo is our middle daughter, and then Maggie, and Mary Jo and Maggie are both in college at this time.
So what would you like to say about Mark's dedication to the family business and just how you've been able to progress together as a team?
I've started referring to him as the lifeguard of the winery. Like, he is the guy who keeps everything going and safe for everybody. And on a very macro level, he's the one who just makes sure that all of us can do what we do as individuals. Because I was just talking with Lenora today, saying how each person here is so critical to the operation, and everyone at any given time steps up and always does more than their silo role. And without that, we wouldn't have Easley Winery. And imagine that. That's 50 years of individuals over our history, being above and beyond when either called to, or even the things that we don't know that they've done. And that's kind of, Mark also refers to us as the shepherds of our people and this business. And not that we're a ministry, but he says, it's our role to shepherd everyone and to give everyone a good, fun place to be and to contribute and to find their skills and to find how they can help build something special. And that something special has been Easley Winery, and we're grateful for that.
Now, you've had a lot of different awards and you're kind of surrounded by them right now. Why don't you speak to some of the awards that you've won over the years?
Oh gosh, it's countless. So it's kind of funny. So Jack Easley didn't believe in awards. He didn't like the idea that someone else, other than your customers, was going to be evaluating your wine and telling people what to like. He never bought into that idea. But then what we realized is, as people are new to winemaking and are looking for some kind of guidance, they don't trust their own palate or what they like or don't like. So you kind of have to submit your wines, and it's also good to compete with your peers. So we decided that when Mark and I took over about 23 years ago, to go ahead and start entering wine competitions. But prior to that, we really didn't. But what that allowed us to do was to get on an international stage and compete against wines from Germany in those wine competitions, to compete also with our local neighbors here in Indiana and say, on this great scale of winemaking, how do we perform when you're competing, say, for example, like in a Cabernet category? How does our Cabernet compete? And then when you come home with a gold medal and others don't, then you're like, okay, whatever we did there, keep doing it. That's the right thing to do.
One thing that I think is pretty amazing is that you're one of the only Champagne certified vendors within the state. Why don't you give us a little background on that and what this machine is behind you and what happens in this room?
Yes, this is sort of part of the secret sauce. Is Easley Winery is the only winery allowed to make and produce an Indiana champagne. And that's because we're grandfathered in with the treaty from France, because we've been making it since 1997. So we are grandfathered in with the French treaty, and we choose to make our Indiana champagne with Indiana's signature grape called Traminette. So our champagne does have some sweetness to it. We did add an additional sparkling wine to our lineup, and that's our Pink Paradise. However, since we haven't been making it since prior to the treaty, it is called a sparkling wine, and it is made with the Catawba grape, which is a Native American grape that you could grow in your backyard.
So let's talk about when the consumer walks into the store. What's some advice to them on how they properly pick a wine?
Well, the biggest thing in selecting wine comes down to taste or flavor. Unfortunately, most Americans today associate price with quality. And while that may be true in, say, buying cars or televisions or appliances, it's not true in wine. You can get a great wine for $7 a bottle, or you can pay $80, $90 a bottle and have a horrible wine. It comes down primarily to sweetness level. As Americans who grew up on Captain Crunch, Coca-Cola, and fudge, we typically like sweeter wines at a younger age. But as we drink wine over a 3, 5, 10, 15-year period of time, our taste will drift drier. So typically we start out sweet, and typically when I say sweet, most wines in America with names like Moscato, Riesling, White Zinfandel, Concord, Catawba are typically made in a sweeter style, versus wines like Chardonnay, Cabernet, Merlot, Pinot Noir, they're made in a drier style. So the best advice I could give to a consumer to select wines and be satisfied with what you're selecting is learn whether you like dry or whether you like sweet. And so if you like sweet wines, don't go looking for Chardonnays and Cabernets, but instead look for Rieslings, Moscatos, and Concords. And the opposite is true if you like drier wines. Because typically, as an industry, whether you're a French winery, a California winery, an Australian winery, or an Indiana winery, you're going to make Chardonnay drier, and you're going to make Riesling and Moscato sweeter. So that's the best advice I can give you, is don't look at price. Price is not a good indicator of what you're going to get as taste. Instead, the wine name or the descriptor of the sugar or sweetness content is going to be a much better guide for you as a consumer.
Thank you, Mark. And Mark, your parents were the original founders of the winery, and give us a little bit of backstory on your parents and their names.
Jack and Joan Easley were their names, and they started in the late 60s, 1967, 68, growing grapes up in southern Michigan and Berrien County, Michigan, around the town of Baroda. They grew fruit there as an investor in a vineyard, and then decided that they would like to get into the wine business back home in Indianapolis, but it wasn't legal. That is, there was no law that facilitated producing wine in the state of Indiana. Certainly we could sell it. It was post-prohibition, but there was nothing that would allow the production of wine. So they came back and got together with 7 other families that said that they would like to grow grapes and make wine in the state. And they approached the Indiana Farm Bureau. And in 1971, they wrote a bill that they took to the Indiana General Assembly that legalized wineries as we know today. Obviously, there's been some tweaking to that law over the years, but the original law was modeled on Pennsylvania's law, which allowed farm wineries. And the main thing there was that it allowed us to directly sell. That is, we could grow the grapes, produce the wine, but rather than having to deal with the 3-tier system, we could directly sell to consumers at our tasting rooms. Jack and Joan found a site down in Crawford County, Indiana, on the Ohio River. They worked with a professor at the Ohio State University, Dr. Garth Cahoon, who did research on weather. And growing grapes or any fruit needs to be grown on a major body of water. It's frost protection in the springtime that the major body of water affords to grapes, apples, peaches, blueberries. And so they found a site down in Crawford County where the Ohio River has several S-curves to them, allowing the winds to come across the river and then getting cool and then blowing through the grapevines before they bud out too soon in the springtime. That site in Crawford County is where we grew grapes from 1971 till 1998. In 1974, they started this winery here in downtown Indianapolis. This was a food factory. It was an ice cream factory specifically. It was called Furtick Ice Cream. And they made soft serve ice cream for Burger Chef and Jeff and for Dairy Queen. They were bought out, and the person who bought out the Furtick Ice Cream Company did not want the facility. So Jack and Joan were able to get the facility and then begin making wine here. So in 1974, we got our first crop off of those grapes that were planted in 1971 down in Crawford County. And for 30 plus years, they would grow grapes in southern Indiana, bring them to central Indiana, crush, press, ferment, and bottle those wines here in downtown Indianapolis and sell them to the surrounding community.
So Nathan, you're the production manager for the bottling facility, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And you've been here for how many years?
13 or 14 years. When we got the new bottling line, it was new to everybody, and I volunteered to learn it and figure out how to run it, and worked with 6 or 8 Italian technicians when they installed it, and learned how the machine runs, and been running ever since.
So today we were able to get a lot of footage of the bottling. And what were you bottling today?
Today we're bottling Reggae Sangria, 750 milliliters. We do 375 and 1.5 liter for that as well, but today was the 750 milliliter Reggae Sangria.
So how many bottles were within that run, and how long does it take, if you kind of explain the math between the volume of bottles and what happens?
Sure. We do about 2,300 cases in a bottle run. So it's around 27,000 bottles. We run at about a pallet of 64 cases every 5 minutes. And so as you saw in there, everything's humming, bells whistling. The whole thing's running real smooth to get a full day in of 2,300 cases in a day.
So what's the reason that you've been dedicated to this family, the Easley family, for all these years?
I don't know. I love what I do. The Easley family are great people. They've kind of brought me along and taught me the industry, taught me winemaking, and they've been great people to work with. And I love the wine that we make. It's a great product, so I'm happy to be a part of it.
In the late 90s, my father, Jack, passed away, and I decided to stay with the business with my mother, and then obviously met my wife, Meredith, and the two of us decided to take over the winery. We traveled the world for about 2 to 3 years, looking at business models of wineries, looking at whether we'd have a restaurant or not have a restaurant, whether we'd do weddings at the venue, whether we'd wholesale or not wholesale wine, and picked a business model. The problem was we didn't have the financing that we needed to do that business model. So for about 10 years, between 2000 and 2010, we began implementing our business model as money became available. And the main thing that we wanted to do was improve quality. The equipment that we had early on was good for making small batches of wine, but the quality wasn't as high as we had liked. And so the main thing that you have to do in making wine is control the environment of the wine. And what I'm saying there is the temperature needs to be controlled and the oxygen content needs to be controlled. Today, we not only make wine for our winery, but we also make wine for 7 other wineries here in the Midwest. About 95% of our volume is sold through the 3-tier system. That is, we will sell to a wholesaler who will then sell to a retailer who then sells to consumers around the Midwest. We sell wine in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Tennessee, and Florida. So with that larger footprint, it's a much different business model where the wines are going and how we're making them. They're designed to be in the 3-tier system.
So you have 3 daughters. Speaking of 3-tier systems, Maggie, Mary Jo, and Madeline.
Yes.
Is the hope and inspiration of them to be able to be part of the ongoing generations of growth for Easley?
Well, Dad's not allowed to speak for them. Dad has very big ideas for them. One is involved in government today, working in Washington, D.C. The other is very involved in cooking and creating. I think Maggie will be our winemaker, and Mary Jo is very business-oriented. She's in grad school up in Canada in a business major doing sustainability. So each of them has their skill set, and yes, I would love for them to come back, but obviously Mom has said they have to make their own decisions. But Dad would love to see them come back into the business.
Well, Mark, I thank you for sharing your story today, and we look forward to hearing from your wife, Meredith, about the guest experiences.
Yes, thank you.
Thing to do.
So what would you like to tell people as far as their total experience and what you'd like them to get out of it when they come to visit?
We want them to discover wines. If they haven't discovered wines before, we're here to do that. We're here to introduce them to wines. We're here to make wine approachable. I find wine incredibly delicious and delightful and very full of lots of rich flavors. And we want to give people that opportunity to try a lot of different wines and to see what they discover, through, looking at the wine, smelling the wine, then tasting the wine, and then suggesting things that they can take it home and have with, a favorite meal. It's just wine is beautiful and delicious. And when people come here, we want them to feel like we want you to come back. We're glad you're here this first time, but we want you to come back the next time and to look forward to that visit.
Keep it fruity, sweet and simple, reggae wine. Just a twist. Keep it fruity, yeah, that's essential. Reggae wine. Just a twist. Take a trip down to the island. Take a sip of paradise.